the way that you choose your schools is probably the most important part of this process. People choose schools based on like scholarship, based on like name of the school, some people location. Those are good filters to use. But for me, I say that the vibe check is the most important thing in everything. For me, like, how do I feel about the school? It's what does the culture look like? As it felt like talking to people that have been connected within the school, the people that like graduated, the alums and like the current students. That played a major part in my decision making, right? Of course, like location matters because of I enjoyed paying $800 rents in Charlottesville while my friends in New York or Chicago were paying like a lot more, right? Location helps. Those things helped, but like it wasn't the most important thing for me. So there was that. I only applied to Darden, right? And I hear people are shocked every time I say this.
Welcome to a special production of the Business 101 podcast. I am your host, Ayo Oye. This is a limited series specifically sharing stories and experiences from some of the world's most selective and most prestigious business schools from the lens of recent international graduates. And if you don't want to miss out on conversations like this, please consider subscribing to this channel and turning on notifications. Today's guest is Anuoluwapo Rogers, a proud Nigerian, Pan-African, and a finance and strategy professional. He is currently a part of the Finance Global Job Rotation Program at American Express, with his first rotation in strategy and transformation in the New York office. Anu recently earned his MBA as part of the class of 2025 cohort at the Darden School of Business, where he also served as president of the Darden Africa Business Organization, DABO. In this role, he worked to connect the African community with the broader Darden and UVA networks while leading initiatives that created opportunities for African students to showcase skills, develop ideas, and connect with African leaders towards building a better working Africa. Prior to Darden, Anu gained over 5 years of experience across tax advisory, finance, risk advisory, and business consulting with organizations such as the Lagos Inland Revenue Service in Nigeria, Petrolog Group, Access Bank PLC, and Ernst & Young. Anu holds a BS in accounting from Obafemi Awolowo University in Ile-Ife. They call themselves Great Ife anyway, and is a chartered banker certified by the Chartered Institute of Bankers in Nigeria. Passionate about driving sustainable growth in Africa, Anu focuses on advancing innovation and development-focused initiatives that can transform businesses, economies, and communities across the continent. Anu is speaking to me today to share experiences from his MBA degree at one of America's most beloved and most prestigious universities and business schools, the Darden School of Business at the University of Virginia. All of that being said, please make welcome Anu Rogers to the podcast. Good to have you here, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you're someone I met pretty early in the MBA program, and we've stayed friends. Anu has been a someone that I could always turn to, rely on in the journey. And yeah, we were at each other's graduation ceremonies.
Yeah.
Thank you again for making the drive. I appreciate you.
Thanks to you too, brother.
Yeah. I feel like a good place to start would be to talk a bit about your background, right? I know I spoke a bit about what you did pre-MBA, but let's breathe some life into, those words, right? Who was Anu before you thought about the MBA? What was your growing up? What was that? What was that like before the MBA came into the scene?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good place to start as well, particularly when we just look at what life look like today, right?
Yeah.
It's always good to think through the journey, how we started, what things were like. And for me, it was just that simple kid, the last child in a pretty humble home, had 2 siblings ahead of me. And my parents would typically say that my siblings are doing really well, both in school and then in life afterwards. And like, they just always felt like, oh, you have to keep up the standards. You have to do just as good, if not better, right?
Yeah.
And that that was one of the things I thought they need to do whatever I laid my hands upon good. And for me, that led me to studying accounting in Buffalo University, which I think was fun. I had a good time. For people that know me, it's always a balance of academics, social life, and my spiritual life. So those three things I don't compromise, right? Find the right balance in a way that everything works together. So I did that. But then I realized, man, accounting is boring. Like, I really want to live that life.
When you said you had fun with accounting, I was like, okay, I'm not going to say anything.
In school, it's fun, right?
Okay.
I enjoyed it. Like, your account balances and you're like, oh, wow, I know this shit. Or like,
Yes.
your projections look good. Or like, you're in that tax class and like things are adding up and all of that, right? You have really good professors and like their friends and not just your teachers like you would have in like typical schools in Nigeria. So like it worked out fine for me, right? But like going into the world, the first firm that I actually joined was a very small accounting firm, and I was supposed to be doing audits, and I was like, nah, not me. So I chickened out of that. I mean, kudos to all my friends that did auditing. Like,
I'm one of them.
I know, fantastic career. I've seen people going through that, but like for me, it just like they feel like the right starts, which is the beauty of the career life. You just see people doing different things, and like the journey leads to a different, and sometimes it leads us all to the same spot, and like we now start to diverge from there, which is what the MBA does, regardless of where you're coming from, regardless of who you are. You all come to that point where you all feel like equals and like start to revamp. So that was what BSc was like for me. So because of that, I realized, you know what, let me try something else. So boom, in Nigeria, there's something we call NYC, right? National Youth Service Corps. And for that, I joined LIRS, which is the Lagos Internal Revenue Service. Did good work there. When I was there, there was still a lot of like very manual paper-ish stuff. But at the level of the office that I worked, I did a lot of work to like move a lot of those stuff to digital footprints, just move a lot of the paper and manual things. You know, let's use Excel, let's use this, and like you can just access it anytime. So that was fun. They wanted me to stay back, but I was like, nah, I think
No.
yeah, the goals are bigger. They respected it. Pursue something much more. I joined Roosevelt Financial Services, a small.
You worked for Roosevelt. One of my closest friends used to work for Roosevelt.
Exactly. Quite small, which and I think it's getting bigger, but a lot of lives and careers are shaped at Roosevelt, right? They introduce you to the early levels of credits. The small customer base, you're looking at individuals and like small companies, but like there's a lot to pick from that, right? And that's where I got introduced to the world of credit. I was in credit risk, just making sure that the exposure of the firm at the time were very well managed and like just coming up with strategies to make sure that we remain a going concern as we keep giving money, we're able to get them back, working on strategies to like aid collections and reduce loss, which was fun. But then I got carried away by money, right? So I got an offer from Petroleum Group, an oil and gas servicing firm, and it just felt like the right thing to do. Like, follow the money, they say, right?
I respect the candor.
Yeah, for real. I did. If you see my resume, I was there for 3 months. It's a very short one. And I just realized that, oh yeah, it was good. Like just like pitching in on building the models to acquire one of the vessels that we did and like coming together with like some forecasts, cash flows, all of that. It was fun, but it wasn't really where my heart was, right? I realized my heart was in the financial services industry, right? Just like what Roosevelt does. So even if I wanted more than Roosevelt, I should be looking at somewhere else and not Petroleum, right? So that's what took me to Access Bank PLC. As we know, at least for those who don't know, Access Bank is the largest bank in Africa by asset size and even in stability, one of the top banks, right, across Africa. So I did a lot of work across the credit risk space within Africa, right? Just making sure that we had like the right tools, dashboard models to keep our credit risk in check. Access Bank also has like one of the best credits metrics, right? When you look at the bank industry as well, like we do a lot of work to contain things and make sure that like
minus you people's nonsense acquisition of Diamond. Okay, I'm not gonna talk. Moving on.
Oh yeah, I mean, there was a lot of backlash for that.
Yeah.
Think through it, right? For Access Bank, we we're big on growth, but like a big
Yeah.
portion of our growth is inorganic.
Inorganic, very
It's largely
acquisitions.
inorganic when you compare it to firms like GT Bank. GT Bank builds everything within. And I mean, just from our MBA, we know that both actually has its pros and cons,
Yeah.
right? Like if you want to go fast, I mean, you're a strategy consultant, a management
Yeah.
consultant. Like,
Inorganic.
if you want to go fast, exactly, right? So we do a lot of that, which has paid off. The big part of the issues with the Access Diamond was the integration. It took a lot of time to get that integration
Yeah.
right. I was in bank at the time, so I can imagine like our customers were feeling, but like the it was much more for us on the inside, right? So I get that. But
You know,
other than that,
I always say the nicest part of that merger was the fact that Access Bank acquired Diamond Bank's head office. That head office is so beautiful. It's so well thought out. And PwC, who was my player at the time, was auditing Access Bank. So I used to be in that office for I was there for like 6 months. Every floor was designed differently from the next floor. And
yeah,
like the guy who used to own it, Dozier, I heard he was an architect, or he's an architect. The guy did
Pascal
beautiful
Dozie,
work.
yeah.
Pascal Dozier did beautiful work. That building is spectacular. For that purpose, for that reason alone, I would say that merger was good.
I walked out of that building, right? So
Interesting.
yeah, it was a unique building. Like I walked on the 8th floor, and like to your point, every floor that you go into has like a different team. The artworks are different. The feel is different.
Very different. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic building. But even much more than that, like the bigger part of that merger was the retail-based customers. That's right.
Diamond
Access was much more focused on like the commercial and the corporate side of
Yes.
things, right? So that acquisition helped us to get into like the retail
Expand your
space,
retail footprint. Yeah.
which was really good. Did a lot of good work at Access. I think one of the things that stood out for me was like working on the old core steering committee that drove the transitioning of the bank and to an holding company. So I work on like the risk steering committee, and like it was really fun. Got good exposure. Worked closely with the then CEO. We got rest assured,
Yeah.
and was able to like do impactful work to see all of the things we have now, which is like the pension, the insurance, the brokerage business that we have now all split out come together. So that was like the last project that I did, but like one of the ones that I really enjoyed before I left Access Bank. But yes, the story. Leaving Access Bank for me was simple. I've done a lot of work like within the financial services space, which is where Access Bank plays. I'd also done that work across different countries. So I helped a lot of the countries within our space, particularly those that we had just acquired or had just started business in, to get like their policies together, to get the team running, to get things moving right. So I felt like I'd seen things from like different lenses across Africa, but my experience still felt very limited to the financial services space. So I wanted to like see what things look like outside of that, which is what led me to joining EY, Ernst & Young, in its business consulting team, but focusing on risk advisory, right? So I still did a lot of work across risk. And it was funny because at some point, Access Bank became my client. So for me, that was fun. But I also was able to work across different industries like oil and gas, FMCG, startup. Like it was interesting. There was a particular startup that I worked at, and the project was to help get their entire enterprise risk up to an stable standard that is required for them to be able to IPO. And they ended up IPOing right after.
That might have been my client. That might have been my employer. Oh, okay.
Was it?
Was it?
I mean, it's public
I don't want
now.
to drop names.
It's public now, so I can drop names. But yeah,
was it Fair Money?
No, it wasn't.
Did Fair Money IPO? Maybe not.
It was VFD. VFD Group.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But interestingly, the CEO was an ex-KPMG, so it was a big four.
Okay, I didn't know
got
that.
out, started something great. The firm is doing great, by the way.
And it's not listed. That's amazing.
Yeah. I saw last week that their profit was about 6 billion, and like great, 6 billion naira in such a short time.
That's
really great. But yeah, that was what it was. And then again, I've seen things across different economy and different industries and economy. I've seen things across Africa. What stage was next at the time? Felt like the right time to get into the global space, right? Let's see what things look like in financial services. within a global space. Interesting to say that before I left Axis Bank, there was a partnership that was going on between Axis Bank and American Express, right, which I was able to advise on the risk side for Axis Bank, right? So again, coming here felt like I already connected with a firm that I potentially could work with. Interestingly, when that opportunity came, it was a full circle moment.
Full circle, yeah.
I did this then, and now like I'm here. So that was a big part
On
of
the
like
other side of the deal.
like why Amex, right? So, and interestingly, that helps me to again see what the financial services space look like now globally, not just in the US, because everyone that knows American Express knows we play across like different markets, right? And like coming here now like really helps me to see that come together. So I think that's what the journey has been. It's been fun. Darden felt like the right platform to
Yeah.
get me through all of this. You know, like it looks like it worked out, if I can say so.
Amazing. And then thanks for being very meticulous about sharing about all the stages of the journey. But you already started talking about this, which was where you came to in your, career journey, where you decided, okay, an MBA makes sense. It fits into the picture, right? But once you had gotten to that point where you're like, okay, I'm going to get a MBA, I find that most people, decide between getting a North American MBA. And I say North American specifically because it's not just America, right? There's Canada and maybe one other country that people potentially could go to. But yeah, North America and Europe, right? Do you feel like you had that consideration, or was it always going to be America once you had decided?
To be honest, when I decided it was an MBA, it was always America. If I was going to do a master's, like maybe like focus on a particular space, right? Yes, I would have opened that up. Like I did consider doing a master's in the UK, for instance, like years before that. And like I got the admission, but it just didn't feel like the right step. And I never went. I got good funding to think about it, right? But I never went, which was I think 2 years before that or so. But the moment I really decided it was an MBA, I'd spoken to a lot of mentors, I'd seen people have gotten their MBAs from schools in the US, top schools. I've seen what the prospect looked like, what their career journey had like looked like after the MBA.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it felt like the kind of careers that I wanted to model mine after, right?
Right.
And from that moment that I decided, there was no going back for me. So I think the big part of it was once I decided, the question then became, when is it going to be? What is it going to take?
Got it. And when you were communicating the decision to go get an MBA with your parents, your siblings, and things like that, were there any hesitation from their part? I mean, you were going to be leaving the fancy jobs that a lot of Nigerians were praying for. And anyone who is in the business field knows, a lot of the names that you've mentioned, Axis Bank, one of the big four professional services firms, right? Leaving all of that to then be an F1 student in the US, buying into the dream of, the American dream. Was there any hesitation from your parents or like mentors, friends, family, anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess this is the point where it's important to say that my father had always wanted me to work in a big four, right? And that did not happen right after school.
Was he an accountant or is he an accountant?
Well, is mostly worked like within the admin space. He used to be head of admin at the Lagos Internal Revenue Service,
Okay.
like back in the days.
Okay.
So he did a bit of accounting work the way all of them in those years they bucket them together, but it wasn't like proper
Because
accounting.
I was wondering how we became very knowledgeable about the big four.
Yeah, like he knew a lot of people who had done that. And he knows well about the industries. And then from the minute I decided I was going to study accounting, so just like done this research, this is what's going to be nice and whatnot. But I eventually did that before I left Nigeria. Then the day I called him, I remember the day I called him to say, hey, Dad, I'm going into EY. And I was like, no way. Like, are you serious? I forgot that. I'm like, okay, I didn't. But yeah, now thinking about that and then saying, the same EY that I called you to say I got into, I had to leave for something that I don't know how it's going to play out yet.
Exactly.
So, I mean, there was, are you sure?
Yeah.
But I think for me, the big parts, like when it comes to my parents, my family, is they trust me, right? So even when it's unclear, and like when it's not all mapped out, they have that, are you sure? But somehow they always like give me that benefit of doubt to say, hey, I know you do what's best. So I think even if there was a hesitation, it was very short lived, right? It was just the typical like in that old moment, but like afterwards the support and like everything went really fast.
Yeah.
The big part to that also is I don't know how it works for a lot of other people, but for myself, I think there was that different phase of reassuring myself that I was doing the right thing.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question, right?
Yeah.
Any personal hesitation? Yeah.
Yeah, like for me, there were days. I remember there was a day I told my friends, I was like, you sure I'll not just move these things next year? I was joined EY because I was young, I was in EY for a year. And I just joined EY. Life is going good. I'm on the key projects. My partner is priming me for great stuff. Like I can see that he's building structures around me. Like we're just pulling me into like some of the key projects. It's like, is it right? I already got my funding. In fact, Darden had given me more funding, I think, in that week. I already paid my deposits. I already got my visa or about to. I can't remember. But like, I just still felt like, are you sure? But my friends told me something. They said, whether you do it today or you do it tomorrow, right? The key thing is you have decided that you want to do it. Right? So if you have made that decision and you are sure of that decision, the best time to always do it
Is now.
will always be now, or the way people say
2 days
yesterday.
ago.
Exactly, right? So I think, and then they really stood by me. I think shout out to my friends. About 4 of them also ended up going to other business schools like across US and Canada, which we graduated together, and then that helped, right? So they carried me, and then another of my friend who is fantastic, who didn't join the journey, but also really great. They made sure that they kept reassuring me and then carried me through. So I think that's how it was for me.
Amazing. And what was the application process like for you, right? So let's talk about what the application process was like. So think about preparing for the GRE essays, getting your recommendation letters, finding application fee waivers, getting a visa, the whole shabam. What did that look like?
Honest, I always tell people my process is a very unique and interesting one. But I'll go in the order that you said. Now, test prep, GRE prep. For me, I knew that if I wanted to do this, I had to do it right. So I spent a lot of time on test prep. I started preparing for my tests at the beginning of the year that I wrote the test, which was 2022. Right. I prepared for that for over 8 months using materials from the GRE, from ETS itself, and then Kaplan. And I did that for close to 8 months. I think I wrote that exam on August 16, if I remember correctly, that year. And I remember getting in work become crazy in between. Things were like not going the way that I thought it was going to go. I was taking like some of the prep tests at different intervals, and I was just like, am I sure I'm going to be able to get into the kind of school? But then, like, again, thankful to my group of friends. It's good to have people that you do this journey with. And like, I had people that could help me figure out, you know what, if this approach isn't working, try this time. Have you tried studying early before work? So like, I had to navigate different ways of study before I eventually found what worked, right? And then eventually started doing the test. And I think there's a confidence that comes with getting higher scores and like getting to a point where it feels like, okay, this isn't bad. This is like I keep going, push extra month. And then I did that up until I wrote the exam in August. And then when I eventually wrote it, I got a good score. I don't know what people call it score. And then there's a part of me that's felt like, I'm not sure I can be more than this. Did I do it again? And then, but like I didn't have that much time to keep that going. So, but I ended up applying with that. But now, to the part of like choosing schools, I tell people the way that you choose your schools is probably the most important part of this process. Like people choose schools based on like scholarship, based on like name of the school, some people location.
Yeah.
Those are good filters to use. But for me, like, I say that the vibe check is the most important thing in everything for me. Like, how do I feel about the school? It's what does the culture look like? as it felt like talking to people that have been connected with me in the school, the people that like graduated, the alums and like the current students. That played a major part in my decision making, right? Of course, like location matters because of I enjoyed paying $800 rent in Charlottesville while my friends in New York or Chicago were paying like a lot more, right? Location helps. Those things helped, but like it wasn't the most important thing for me. So there was that. But why my story is unique is because I only applied to Darden, right? And I hear people are shocked every time I say this, but I only ended up applying to Darden because again I spent a lot of time focusing on the test. And by the time it was time to start applying, I didn't have a lot of the time. I like picked my schools. I think I had Darden, I had Duke. I love Duke as well. I had
I love you too.
UNC. I think I had UNC. I was supposed to do Cornell. Yeah, schools like that. But I ended up applying to Darden and I submitted Darden on the last day. And you know the way it works. Like, oh yeah, I'll apply to these other schools. Second
Wow.
round, Darden came. Funding was good. It was my top choice. Like, am I going to reject that and like reapply to other schools? And nah, if I got my first choice, the funding was good enough, right? What was left? So that was what that part was like. I think there are other things you mentioned, if you can
Yeah.
highlight.
Application fee waivers, getting a visa, things like that.
Yeah, so application fee waiver, Darden is a fantastic school, by the way. Because again, Darden, if you're an African and you live in Africa, application is free. At least up
Automatically.
until
That's
this
one
round.
of the it
Yeah,
was
up until
beautiful
this
to
round.
see.
So that was good. So again, we end up paying application fee, right? As you will see. But what I did was different schools will give you application fee waiver if you attend like some certain
Yeah.
webinar, like
Ask me
sessions.
anything sessions,
Yeah,
especially.
so like I took my time to like pen down, oh, which school does this? Like, how do I find these programs? Make sure I attend, make sure I'm eligible for that because it helps you to save a lot of money, right? So if you are considering this, just make sure that you're looking at that, you are penning down names of the schools and like you are getting the waivers from that. That helps. Paying $250 from Nigeria with the exchange rates could be a lot of money package. And then when you have multiple schools to apply to, which is the way people typically do it, right? It's a lot of money. For the visa, I think the visa process is one of the most interesting but important part of the journey. And for me, I would say it was God, right? Because now I don't think I've shared this publicly in anywhere before, so I'm going to say this. I was working in AY.
Copyrights over this information.
I was working in AY and I'd decided to take time off. Like, I ended a week off from work. But then I told God, I said, I need to do my visa interview. There was no dates. If my visa dates can fall in the days of my leave, then I think that as a goal for me. I think that as a goal for me. My leave is supposed to start the next week. It was like Thursday or Friday of the previous week. And then my best friend calls me and says, Alpha, there's dates now. Go and check. And the first date I saw was the second day of my this couldn't be anymore, right? But that aside, it takes a lot of prayer. It takes a lot of getting your story together. It takes a lot of aligning things, right? I knew for a fact that like my background was good. I didn't have like any unique or like special or crazy travel history before then. So like, again, you don't need to. But I was clear about my goals. The journey aligned. Again, I always say the names of on your resume help, but again, people think differently about these things, right? But when I put everything together and I had a lot of repetitions of the prayer, I kept going over and over again. Like, what are the hiccups in my story that I need to take out? What do I need to tweak? To be honest, these things are not within your control because you can just meet one person and like, you just don't think you're qualified for it. And like, that changes everything, right? But for me, again, it wasn't, my journey was clear. I knew I wanted to be here for a purpose. I was honest about that purpose. I had friends that were going through the process and like, we're able to do it together. So just having people in the process really, really helps. All my friends got their visa. We all made it here. I think just being true to your story, to your journey, it helps.
You have such an interesting story, and you're like a first for so many things. You're the first person I'm speaking to who only wrote the GRE once. First person I'm speaking to who only applied to one school. I think there might be one person else that I might have spoken to, like doing the MBA, that only applied to one school. I don't know, but You're probably the only one, and you also got your visa on the first try. First try. I feel like yes, you definitely had an interesting and above normal, better than normal application process. So that's good. I'm glad you didn't have to struggle through a lot of things. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Anu, can you assume that I don't know anything about your school? So talk about where your school is located, what the city is like, what else is there to do in the city aside, going to, the Darden bubble, and then how you felt about living in that city for 2 years, because you did have to live in the city for 2 years. So what was that like?
Yeah. Again, Darden is in Charlottesville, Virginia. That's about 2 hours, 30 minutes from DC.
Yeah.
So if you choose Darden, you ever want to have fun, DC is the place. By the way, I love DC. I'm digressing. But to the point, Darden is someone that's very dear to my heart. I love Darden so much. And anybody that knows me knows that. The things that matters to Darden, one of the things that makes Darden stand out, that makes Darden, is the case study method. Everyone will tell you this, right? The fact that you go into the classroom, you're not just like reading the cases, but like every day, every class, you're thinking, you're challenged, you're hearing people's thought process, and you're wondering, how did you come about this idea?
Mm.
How does your head work? It's opening up your thinking faculty in a way that's has never been opened, in a way that has never been challenged. That is what you get in Darden, right? What Darden says, and which is the way I felt, is every classroom is like a boardroom, right? With all the different board members saying what they feel, how they feel, the way that they feel, without any filter, right? And then you think of your faculty as the chairman that directs the flow of things. And to me, that really makes Darden.
Mm.
Another thing that makes Darden very unique is the community. The community at Darden is one of the things that I say is, these things could just be buzzwords. People throw buzzwords about like community, collaboration, this. But like in Darden, community means community, and not just like something you just throw around. Like, let's say this so that it's part of our values, or it's part of the standouts. But like people genuinely care about you, right? People meet you and they really give you a chance. The same way you give people a chance, because what we don't realize when we say these things is, yes, like you're in a new place, but like sometimes too, the people you're meeting, it's your first time of meeting somebody like you from where you are, meeting a brand new perspective. So like the same way you expect that they are welcoming to you, they are open to you, it's the same way that you should be to them.
Yeah.
Right. And that like gives us that very, very fair play environment where everyone is open-minded. I tell people one of the questions in the Darden essay is about like, how have you been inclusive to people in the past, and how do you intend to bring that to Darden? Now, we think that inclusion is just about people including us because like we are the ones that are leaving our comfort zone and like we're comfortable with them, right? But the way it plays out is Darden asks every student, not just domestic, or like not just international, because it matters to everyone that we operate in that that vibe lens, that same focus.
Yeah.
That mattered a lot. Like when I thought about going far away from home, being somewhere, it mattered to me that I was somewhere I felt seen, accepted, and welcome. And Darden was a great for that. Right. Another important thing about Darden, every one thing that people don't say about Darden that everyone like misses out was that we focus on like Darden is rigorous, Darden is bigger, the case study, but Darden is fun. Again, it might also be because we are in an isolated part. Suppose it is far from it's like 2 hours to DC.
Yeah.
Darden is fun. A lot of activities. We have the Darden Cup. We have the 100 case party when you like get to 100 cases in Darden. We have all of the different things. We have like the Darden talent show. We have drag show. Like there's just a lot of things. Like you will do a lot of things at Darden. Like they just keep you engaged, and you sometimes will forget the outside world, right? Which makes it fun. And then another important thing to Darden is one thing that I learned in Darden so much. I mean, it's something that has been a core value for me for a long time, but like Darden put it on a different pedestal for me. It's integrity, right? There's something we call the honor code system in Darden, and it is if I leave my classroom today in Darden and I drop my phone in the classroom, and this is very important. So when Darden is thinking about choosing candidates, like it's important that they can see that part of your story, that part of your life that shows that you had that integrity. The honor code in Darden is not just to like stolen properties or like so. Like Darden would always have a lot of food on the always, and then there's a honor code, and the honor code is don't take food if it doesn't belong to an event that you're attending or like anything that has to do with you. I mean, it's as simple as a can of Coke, right? But it's important that you live those values even in the simplest of moments, right? And it also applies to our exam. Our exams in Darden are take-home exams. It means you write it at the comfort of your house, right? It's open book. So it means you can do and undo in the way that you do it. But like we trust you. You've signed that you will do this exam without any assistance by yourself the right way that is fair to you and fair to others, right? So that matters a lot to Darden. That's another part of Darden that I saw in a different way.
I know you've sold to Darden to even me. Should I return my Duke MBA and go to that? But one thing I know is not telling you. Darden and Harvard are the only two schools that use the case method fully, which means every single class that you attend at those schools, you have a case to read, right? Most schools use like between 60, I would say, and 80% case method. And then they include things like academic research and discussions and capstones and things like that. But Darden and Harvard, I think, are the only two schools that do full case methods. And as fun as I know is selling it to be, it's to work, right? You will read because every case will be cold called. So just know that. Anyway, do you have any cold calling stories?
Yeah, I do. And thanks for chipping that in. Actually, just studying an Harvard that does like the full case study method, and it's fun. My first class in business school, my very first class, the first class of my sense, at least in my search.
Yeah,
I was the first code call.
Nice, right? A lot of firsts.
Yeah, I was the first, right? I was the first code call. Prof looked up to me and said, "Anu, what's happening here?" I didn't even understand that I was being code called. She's like, what's happening here? What do you mean what's happening here? Like my business school is day one of class. Like, okay. And she goes, no, what are we discussing today? But again, first impression always matters. So I'm not saying for a fact that I read all the cases in that, but of course, for the first class, you want to be that guy. Or you don't want to be that guy, right? That shows up first day of class unprepared. So like it worked out pretty fine. I was able to walk the class through, and she stayed on me. I think that's another like, tell me more. Let's hear more. Why did this happen? And like I was able to like walk through that. But to be honest, Ayo raised a great point. The case study is very rigorous, right? You have to keep reading, you have to keep synthesizing, you have to keep pivoting. I think that's the part that was a big struggle when I started. People are moving fast. You're still like in one part of the case that you felt like, oh, this is the main thing. And then people have moved on to like make a big deal out of a part that you never even considered. It's like very integral to the case, right? And like you have to be able to like catch up very fast and pivot quickly, which is a lot of struggle when like you're international. This is the first time you're learning using that method. And sometimes, again, depending on the kind of background you have, this is the first time you're doing the kind of course, maybe like a business course, and like it's just all new for you, right? And Darden does another fantastic job in collaborating. So like we have something that we call learning teams, right? You all get to go through the case together before the class. Everybody brings their opinion. I think a group of like 6 people across different sections. Everybody brings their perspective together. Not right, not wrong, just the way you see it. And then you can objectively walk through, oh, this is what makes sense. This is a good way to see it. And like that helps you to get through that.
Yeah. And I want to caveat what I said about, the case method being very rigorous, right? I feel like there's a lot of value to it. It's uncomfortable. Maybe uncomfortable is the wrong word. It's stressful, rigorous. It will challenge you. But I
It's
feel like there's a
rigorous.
lot
Let's
of
be
value
fair.
to it because you guys have such a good outcome for the consulting and banking industries. Really good outcomes, I would say,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like it's part of that training that you've gone through, being able to synthesize a lot of information and essentially think from the mindset of an operator rather than someone that is standing outside. And you carry that to your interviews and your case preps and things like that. And you guys really do well. Like honestly, if you're listening to this, you should check out Darden's employment report for those two industries. You have really good numbers, I would say. I mean, I'd say the top 10, top 15 MBAs all have great numbers, but particularly in those two industries, Darden is like top tier. So maybe there's something, linked to the case method there.
Yeah, there's
Just
something in
wanted
it.
to
And
give you
even
guys your
like
flowers.
to just stretch that a bit further. Even like I tell people, like, because before now, people say, oh, that is a consulting school. That focuses and like has great outcome in consulting and like banking. But to be honest, I tell people Darden is the school that you go regardless of what you want to do. And yes, this is the thought process behind it. I've seen people in Darden get into any industry, name it. Like before I came to business school, like I'd always like thought through like development finance and like there's no MBA pipeline. But I've seen people in Darden, not one person, not two people, consistently get to IFC, get to World Bank. Darden gets you anywhere, right? And it's also the messaging that I've worked
Please,
with Darden.
you cannot be coming here to be selling that. Darden, you people need to come and pay for adverts, please. I know he's doing too good a
Yeah,
job.
I guess we'll have to write them,
You're
write
doing too
them.
good a job selling Darden. I like it.
We'll have to have them write you a check. But
Right?
Darden gets you anywhere. And to Ayo's point, like you can use those skills literally anywhere, right? Anywhere. Like it comes very handy. It's like, let's say you're not going into consulting, you're not going into banking, but like you are doing like a brand management or a marketing LDP somewhere. And those skills are not like typically looked out for. You are displaying those skills and you're putting them to use. And like you're very organized in the way you're putting out your thoughts, the way you're synthesizing, you're able to say, oh, this is how I'm thinking about it in three different ways. The first point is this. The second, like you're able to like bring all of that together. Or like you're in a meeting and they're talking and they're saying, you know what, from the lens that I see it, we're supposed to take this product to market instead of this, and this is the thought process behind it, and blah blah blah. Like the fact that you're so comfortable with speaking, and like you sometimes don't even realize it, and like you're in your internship on day one or day two, and like boom, the questions you're asking is making your manager give you feedback. Like I like it. Like you're very, very inquisitive. You ask really thoughtful and deep questions. And I think those are skills that we didn't realize that people that hold this role should have. Those were words that my manager said to me, I think at the end of week one of my internship. And you wouldn't realize that you have those things, but that's what the case study method does to you.
Now that we've come to the end of selling Darden, can we move on?
Absolutely.
I'm just kidding. Okay, so I still have a lot of questions for you, so I'm going to breeze through as quickly as I can. But first I want to talk about like the other side of the application process, right? Where I feel like a lot of schools do a great job of availing a lot of support to you when you're applying in terms of, FaceTime with admissions committee members, first year, second year students. Everyone is super helpful. And in some cases, that might not carry across when you then, enroll. What did you think that mix was like for you? The kind of support that you got from Darden alums, current student, and AdCom when you applied versus when you enrolled. Do you think there was any difference there?
Yeah, if you caught this, I made a statement about if I wanted to be somewhere, I needed to be somewhere where I felt seen, accepted, and supported. Right, Darden is that place. And for me, when I compare the pre and post, right, it's like that's one of the major reasons why I went there. So it was something I was looking out for. Are these people going to be the same way? Like, did you just lure me here because like that's part of like selling and of course like filling up your classroom, or is this who you are truly? And for me, I think that didn't like lived up to the standards, right? Like the expectations that they made me have, they were able to like live up to those expectations. And here's why I say so. Before I applied, I connected with alums, I connected with current students. I had calls with admission, like, hey, I'm confused about this. What do you think? How do I go about this? Blah. After I applied, and I got in and I paid my deposit. I think one big part of the business school, the moment you pay your deposit, you are in, because that's what they call skin in the game.
Yeah.
You put your skin in the game, and like from there, in fact, the school knows that you are coming, except in scenarios where like there are things beyond you that hold you down from going, like maybe visa issues or God forbid health issues and other things. But like from that stage, yeah, you've committed. That's what they call it.
Yeah.
Sometimes things can change from there. It's like, yeah, it's great. So, but like Darden was I still had a lot of calls. Like I had calls to renegotiate scholarship. I want more money. I want more money. Like even though they didn't have more money at the time, they still took the call. They still like responded to the email. And then when I got on ground, also like one of my favorite people from Darden is an outcome person. We would give each other hugs every day. Like she was still that person. Like I could go to her office and say, "This is how I feel about this. This is what's going on. How do I go about this? This is where I am." So that channel, that open communication channel was always there. The person to speak with, and also it's easy to also forget that I was the president of DABO. So again, there were some access, but in my first year I wasn't, right?
Yes.
And I still was able to experience some of these things. And I still know people who weren't holding positions, but like had those connections, right? So I'll say Adin does a good job at like being conscious. It's hard sometimes, like a lot of people in the classroom. How many
Yeah.
people can vaguely, like most people that actually pursue that access tries to like have those conversations that want to room that it makes that available.
Amazing. And now that we're on the conversation and on the topic of, having access and building connections with people, from the perspective of someone who, moved over to the US from Nigeria, where the recruitment process is a bit different, right? Where you don't really need touch points with people to get a job, right? You just need to have a great CV, you see an opening, you apply. If your experience lines up, you get invited for an interview, or at least that's how it was for a lot or most of the industries, right? Versus in the US, where companies would most likely not even draft you for an interview if you haven't spoken to like 8 or 10 people at that firm, right? What did that switch look like in the context of learning to build connections with people, network with people, have coffee chats, and speak to them in a way that they felt comfortable with? Well, what was that switch like for you? How did you navigate it?
For me, I'd say it wasn't easy, to be honest. Like it was, I don't know if it was a culture shock for me.
Mm.
It was also one that like people had talked about a lot, but I just didn't understand how deep it was.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I have to do this. Because back home, when you do that, people say that you're using connection.
Mm. It's found that, yeah.
Yeah, like it's found out, right? Like now that's the main thing. Like my job is to make this person like me instead of the other person, or at least better than the other person. And it was just shocking. Right. But I understood that when you're in Rome,
You
right?
become Roman.
Exactly, right? You have to be able to do what you need to do to survive in a new environment. Luckily for me, I'm a bit social, like quite social actually.
Quite, I would say.
Quite social actually. So having the conversations were okay, but it was just like the different variations and like the frequency, like felt a lot, right? But I think for people who are coming, like it's important to know that this is real. This is something you have to do. At least if you're pursuing some career areas, it is more than the other. I think people in banking had to do a whole lot more, right? Compared to people in consulting and like, or corporate finance and like other management related roles or
Yeah.
tech. And even within consulting, I also know that there are firms that do more than the other. So it always depends. Right. But the way to go is know yourself, know like what you're trying to achieve, know the expectations of the career that you're choosing. Because if you go into banking, you have to do it. In fact, very uncomfortable ones sometimes, like in circles and whatnot, right? And for me, one thing that really got me through it, even though I didn't have to do a lot of it, thankfully, was I had my eyes on the goal. I was authentic to the story I was selling. Because again, that's what gets people confused. It's like you're trying to what you're not to people. And like sometimes you're not able to follow up on that picture that you've painted. Right. And you struggle with that, and then they're wondering, oh, I had a chat with this person, it was nice, and then they sell you to somebody else. But like when you meet that other person, you're not what they're expecting, because again, you weren't you as you should have been, and like you're now a different person. So like if you stay true to what your story is. I mean, I know it sometimes it's hard. It's like, oh, you're trying to sell the story that works best, and you're trying to like align it with the story of the
looking
person you're
forward the
talking
role.
to. Like all of those things, but like in all of that, don't lose your originality that comes with you. That's what gets you through that. And I think that's something that I really embodied throughout that process.
Amazing. Something you kind of started talking about was you kind of made a slight mention of it. I want us to talk a bit more about it now. Was the emotional part of like not just the move, but also the living, as an international, the process of living as an international student in the US, right? And for a lot of international students, you're coming from a place where you were literally the thing, right? You were the shit. You were the guy. You had the fancy job. You were the one who probably was top tier, generally or relatively, right? And then you come to a country and then to a program where everyone is type A, everyone has done amazing stuff. And you realize you're just a tiny part of a very big engine, right? And sometimes it might be a struggle to kind of get used to that. Did you have any such feelings, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I did. I absolutely did. It's like you're coming from a place where you were the star boy.
Exactly.
Like you're going over that star boy, you're representing again, you're doing amazing. Like we know you would represent us well on this global stage. And like you get there and like there's 300 other star boys.
Exactly.
Star girls and like
more star people actually.
Yeah, and like, boy, how do I find my feet in this place? But again, for me, one thing that has always shaped the way that I show up and the way that I do my things is that I stay true to myself. And the journey has always been me against myself. So in as much as the noise is always involved, like it's easy to find yourself like trying to compare with others, like, oh, these people seem just as smart or even more.
Yeah.
Where do I fall in the rankings, and like how do I fit into all of these?
Yeah.
I made sure that I was able to like take away that noise. And so today I do that. It's like, where am I coming from? Where am I now? Is this progress? Does this feel like progress? Yes. If it does, then that's it. So that carried me through in a way that even when I didn't feel like the smartest in the room that I used to be at some point, right? I knew that this was an investment. So I wanted to make the best of the investments. In the beginning, I don't have to feel like the smartest in the room. But what do I feel like at the end of it all? Do I feel smart enough to compete on this scale with these people? Do I feel smart enough to be able to like build relationship with these people, and then they are comfortable with me and like they can call on me if they have anything coming up in the field that they know that I've been able to establish over time that I'm good at?
Yeah.
Right? Do they see me and feel like, oh, this guy has substance, regardless of the fact that every other person else also does? Right. So those were the things that were pushing me. Like, what was unique to me that I could embody that makes people understand me for who I am and that makes me stand out. Right. Those were the things that I really, really spent my time focusing on. And not how smart I sounded or how smart I looked in the midst of people. Right. Everybody has like their own unique skill, their own unique selling point. How do you make sure that you embody that and people can see it? I think that was focus. I wasn't like the star boy in all of the classes, but like if I'm doing an accounting class, for instance, like I could say things like, yeah, this is what knows this. I won't be that guy in the marketing class.
Yeah.
Again, just focusing on those things. Yeah.
Thank you for giving that perspective. And when you were speaking earlier, you kind of alluded to your role as part of the Darden Africa Business Organization, DABO, and essentially being co-president, being president of that organization. But away from let's talk about a bit of your involvement with that organization, but let's stretch it to your interactions with other organizations, other student clubs and societies, right? How did you ensure that you were an active part of the student community, right? In the midst of trying to get a job, which is like most important thing in business school, I guess.
As an international.
And actually learning, being a part of classroom activities and things like that. And, trying to get involved in global immersions trying to spend time in student activities, all of that, right? How did you still find time to be an active part of communities and organizations?
Yeah. And also like just to add to that, also like staying connected with my source, right? Like my God, my family, my
Family,
friends,
friends.
like people, like that was also another part. But yeah, like for me again, it's when I decided and I committed to go through this journey, I made sure that I told myself I was going to make the best of it. So whatever that meant to me was mine to shape. And that's what I did. I shaped it. Like, what were the things that were important to me? I listed them out. Academics, big parts, right? I want to learn. I'm not trying to chase the grade here. Like, I don't want to make the best grade. I want to learn. Like, what are the things that I would randomly sit in a meeting one day and then something comes to me and I can pull out and say, oh, this is what I remember from this. That mattered to me. Relationships also really mattered. So I spent a lot of time investing in relationships, friends, both within Darden and outside of Darden. It matters so much to me that because people say that when you get an MBA, big part of your MBA is network, the connection you get. And I took that like literally, I took that as serious as possible, right? Like I connected with people on like a very deep level, like became friends. Because again, one thing you need to know about me is I am very, very careful about like how I name people in my life. Like I'm not one of those people that just like randomly call my friend, my friend. I'm able to like be able to distinguish between who my friend is and like classmates, who an acquaintance is. So when I said that I made friends, it was very conscious, right? And like because it was important, I did that. Now, another huge part of my life is I'm I love Africa so much. I feel like there are potentials. There's a lot that we could potentially be doing. A big part of my journey isn't just about like making a name for myself or like making wealth. It's also like how do I contribute to a better working Africa? And I always keep that at the back of my mind. Whatever I do, anywhere I go. And for me, that was a big part of like getting involved with the African club. It's like, how do we make sure that people see us for who we truly are, despite what the current situation of the continent looks like? How do we show up? How do people feel when an African raises up their hand in class to contribute? Like, how do we make those experiences better for us? And those were the things that drove the need for me to be active and like take that particular position, right? So that was also very important to me. It was also important to me that my relationship with God keeps getting better. So as much as I could, I also made sure to participate very well in the Darden Christian Fellowship, DCF, right? We used to have like Tuesday prayers, we used to have Friday Bible studies. I tried to make sure that I went there on most of the days that I could, right? Making sure that I made plan for it and like it was on my calendar. I think that brings me back to like the way I was able to do it. My calendar was my life. I lived by my calendar a lot. I put everything on the calendar. Everything as basic as a friend is coming over and like we just want to chat. I put it on the calendar. It sounds serious, but that's the way I can organize my life. So like the calendar really, really, really works for me. And then going back to the other part of your question, one thing that we need to understand is as internationals, yes, we're new, right? But the thing is the things that we do, the experiences that we have shapes the future for other internationals like us, right? So the way we show up, the things we do, the way we participate, the kind of impression we leave follows the leaders of the school back to the meeting room to say, oh, you know what, we need to get more people from this country. Look at all people from this continent. And for me, I wanted to be at that forefront of driving that. How do we show up as Africans? How do we add to this community? Do we ensure that we one of those people that the school wants to make sure that they're investing more in? So not just driving in conversations with the school, but also with the people. So making sure that people were well prepared to start at Darden. So at the start of Darden, making sure that the first years had all the resources that they need to show up well in class, to participate, pointing them to like the tips and tricks to surviving the case study method, surviving Darden, to get through things, helping them settle in within the Darden community, helping them know how to navigate their life, how to plan finances, what are the options that are available, all of those things, right? Very important. And then a huge part of it also is like, how do we collaborate with other people, right? Because it's important that when you come to this experience, you're meeting people from different backgrounds, coming from different countries, different ideologies. But it's important that you're able to take a piece of different things to shape the new person that comes out of the MBA. I thought people might be transformed. And that transformation isn't just about the degree that I just kept in a jar in my home. It's who I am, right? And it's from those people. So we did a lot of collaboration across board. Like the Global Business and Culture Club collaborated with them, collaborated with a lot of other affinity groups. Asia, we part of the Darden Emerging Market podcasts where like we spotlighted Africa, talked about business in Africa, talked about like some of the regulations, talked about things that were happening in the global space that were about to impact Africa. Like facilitated bringing speakers from Africa to come on these shows. Did one of the biggest so far conference in Darden for Africans, the Darden African Conference, where we flew leaders from across Africa, people that were driving real change in Africa to come talk about how they were thinking about it, what the challenges are, what the opportunities for some of us that intend to go back and solve problems look like, right? So those were some of the things. And then this was done in collaboration with almost all the affinity clubs in Darden supporting this project, being a part of it, doing one thing like that. So that also helped to bridge gap and like bring people together. Also encouraging people to attend events of other affinity clubs, making sure that they connect with people, inviting them to some of our other events, just making sure that programming was right, like ensuring that people have the right mindset to engage these things, right? So those were some of the things. I mean,
Amazing. Wow, that's a lot. And thank you for doing your part to continue to, not just put Africa on the map, but create the environment, for Africa and Africans to be an active part of solving global issues, right? Because it's not just about people knowing about Africa, it's also Africa being recognized as a solution provider to issues of the world. And some of the things you spoke about are some of the best ways to do that. So thanks for spearheading that. If you could give a 15-second, let's say 30-second speech to an African student who is resuming on day one of the MBA at Darden or generally across board, right? What would you say?
I mean, I'll say you're in charge of your journey, right? Take charge of your journey. All schools, I don't want to also mention studying, but all schools kind of have this, they feel like this is a career that's great, or this is what you should be doing. Take myself, for example. Darden Career Center told me I was a perfect material for investment banking and that I should be doing investment banking and my profile is great for it and blah, blah, blah. But I knew the life that I wanted for myself. That's what I went after. So make sure that your journey is defined by you, right? Because on the big scale, the way most of these things work is you're just another figure in the data that some people are trying to get. And you don't want your career to end up like that. So take charge of not just your career, but also your experience. Like there are a lot of things that happen in business school. So like curate your experience the way you want it to be. A big part of what happens is overcommitting, which also goes back to my question I asked earlier, like how do you manage a lot of things that happen at once? Like you need to learn how to say no. You need to be able to pick the things that are really important, right? It's probably the last big break that you get in your career. So make the best of it. Let it count.
I just want to allude to something you said about recognizing that for all the, we love all these great schools and how intentional they can be, about supporting your recruitment journey, right? But at the end of the day, you have to recognize that, it's your life, it's your career. And schools generally they're like middlemen, right? Honestly, I think about
platform.
Exactly. I think about them like a marketplace or a platform. It's like Uber for employment, right? With Uber, you say you want to eat African food and African stores want to sell African food. Uber connects both of you and takes a share. Uber doesn't really care whether you eat or whether you eat African food or not. It's none of their business.
If you enjoy the food,
or if you enjoy the food, right? And it's the same thing with business schools or generally the educational system, right? You want to get connected to the best companies in the world, and those companies won't get access to the best talents, right? So the business school is like the marketplace. They bring both of you together and charge you a fee for that, right? So if you think about it in that scenario or in that context,
They need an employment report to aid the marketing for the next.
exactly. So you realize that you have to figure out what's best for you and be dogged about finding it. Obviously, there are impacts to that, right? There are implications to that. And one of the implications is the fact that you might have to do a lot of the work yourself, right? And I know I'm pretty sure can speak a lot to that. I'm sure you had to do a lot of individual and personal work to create the opportunities that eventually led to your, landing an offer at American Express, right? Because most schools will have pipelines, high-end pipelines for consulting, banking, maybe some tech roles, right? But the more offshoots careers, are things that you might have to go out there and create opportunities for yourself. I mean, there are people like me that ended up in consulting, despite everything I've said. But I did leave England with the mindset that I wanted to do consulting. And I had my consulting offer before I started business school. So I could have still recruited if I wanted to.
Fulfilled. It's what you wanted.
But consulting is not the only way. I just wanted to put that out, right? And banking is not the only way. Is if you want to do something else, have the strength of mind and the strength of purpose to go after it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Well, my final official question is this, right? When we were applying to the business school, this was 2023, we already started hearing rumors and conversations, whistlings about how, the economic landscape in the US is not in the best position that it has ever been in, but a lot of things were still pretty good. Like the immigration landscape was pretty certain and stable. And we made the decision to come, right? But I feel like more so right now, there's a lot more uncertainty in terms of the economic landscape, the immigration landscape. A lot of changes have happened and a lot more might be on the way, right? Those could potentially impact on the attractiveness of an MBA in the US, right? So my question is, if you were to be applying to the MBA today in 2025, what kind of additional considerations would you have had? What kind of things would you be thinking about, and how would you make a decision as to whether or not the MBA it's still valuable investment, I'd say?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you made the point already. The landscape is different. I mean, even over the past few years, the economy has been each year, like it keeps getting. The previous year has always been better, right? The last time the economy was great, like really great, was before COVID. Like since COVID, it's just been expectations. Like it's just us hopefuls hoping that things get better, right? And I mean, you can see it in the recruitment outcomes. But now, right, the outlook is still the same. I mean, maybe things might be better with the fact that there's a lot of reshoring that is probably going to happen. Apple already talked about the fact that they're going to move production back. A couple other companies are doing that. So maybe that might bring a couple more jobs back. But as we have it today, we know that the market is crazy. So I'll run with that. So that makes it still tough when you're making a decision, coupled with the fact that even though immigration has always not also been like a walk in the park, like there's no assurance. You can have 100% funding and like you get to that desk and then the person says no, and it is no, right? Unless you have some time to do it again. But now it's like even much more tough, right? Tougher than it has ever been. Even shorter. I think it's 3 months. With that comes too much uncertainty. And when I think about making decisions with variables that I can't control, right? I like to make sure that the variables that I can't control are way lesser than the ones that I can. Right. At this point, I would say it's the other way around. My personal advice to people has been absolutely put in the work, like do all you need to do. But in the cases before, your plan B is to be like, oh, another US school, or like the plan B, in my opinion, now should be maybe another school in Canada, or like another school in the UK, or like whatnot. That's the way that I think about it. Like if you are really, really like big on moving on, like from Africa, getting quality education, you will find a lot of that, not just in the US. I mean, of course, if we're being honest, for MBAs, I typically say that maybe the US might be, and this is relative, right? So that if anybody listens to this, you don't quote me, but like personally, I think the US is the best place right, personally, right? But I've seen all people also doing great stuff outside of like Canada, outside of like other parts of Europe. Like there are great schools in Europe, right? So I think this is the time to start thinking of those alternatives, right? But not thinking of them independently or like in an isolated form. You can also like have them as like backups, right? And I think that's the advice. But yeah, the way things look like on this end, I think it's rougher than it has always been.
2023, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Okay. Now to my favorite part of the show, which is always my final two questions, right? And one is, tell me something about Darden that you cannot find in the brochures, right? So something you have to physically be at Darden to find out. And it can be something as simple as, a sculpture, a painting, a tunnel you found, restaurant that people like to go to, something that is more experiential. And then two is, tell me something about yourself that we haven't spoken about. So something that's not related to career or business or the MBA or something, right? Just an interest, a hobby, something you're passionate about that you indulge in that we haven't spoken about.
Yeah, I think I could take a stab at that. I think something people don't talk a lot about that. I don't know how this is for other schools, so I'll just give it a go. There's something in Darden called First Coffee. It's a tradition, right? So
First cookie,
First Coffee.
coffee. Okay.
So you get free coffee from Darden every day. And like, it's not anywhere. I don't think it's talked about enough.
Yeah, that's the first time I'm
Because
hearing it.
people run on coffee in Darden. It's like a factory. Like I have a classmate that says it takes up to 6 cups.
That's not healthy. That classmate needs to talk to me.
So people run on coffee, and Darden does a good job at fueling that addiction. Right. So I think that's something.
Okay.
I guess it counts. For me, I don't think a lot of people know this also. But before business school, at the early stage of my career,
An Afrobeats artist.
yeah, really good artist, a rapper actually. And what's interesting is today that artist is a founder in Nigeria.
Can this be? Do you want to name drop?
Yeah, I don't think it minds. Is the founder of Ivory Pay. Ivory Pay is
A fintech app, right?
the fintech that focuses on payments, but think Bitcoin. So Bitcoins and all of that. And it's doing really great. They've launched new products. I don't want to do marketing here. But yeah, they're doing really great. And like he's also moved from like an artist to like interesting, right? But yeah,
what's this person's name?
His name is Anuoluwapo Rogers. His stage name then used to be Jen Black. And we did do a couple of shows together. We got on the road, like met with labels, literally had meetings, almost got signed, but it didn't happen.
Just so you could have been a full-blown manager. You could be another, what's Davido's manager called?
Asa Asika.
Asa, you could be another Asa Asiko.
Yeah, I did that alongside my full-time job at the time.
Thank you for sharing. I know we've gone above time, but I really just want to take a moment to thank you for making the time to be here and for sharing very honestly, openly, and what's the word? Concisely about your experience and just being very, very open about your experience. I think people are going to find it very useful. So thank you for taking the time and for coming on.
Anytime, bro. Anytime.
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much.
Anytime. I got you.
Yeah.
Good job, man. Good job with this.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And see you guys on another episode of the Business 101 podcast. My guy, I appreciate you.
Of course, bro.